name's Tim. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you for having me. Um, there are folks from lots of different places, uh, with lots of different varieties of English. So I don't know how used anyone is to a British accent, so I'm going to speak relatively slowly. Um, Also, I'm very aware that there are people who are very new in AA and who may not have understood some of the terms that have already been used. So I'm going to present this as though there's only one person in the room apart from me, and that's a new person. And I think that's the main responsibility in AA. Some basic facts and figures. I drank during my teenage years and in my very, very early 20s. My last drink was when I was 21. I'm heading towards my mid-50s now, so I haven't had a drink for over 30 years. So you get a sense of where I would be if it weren't for that. I have a brother who was alcoholic, who was dead before he reached the age of 30. So that's the career of an alcoholic in my family. What is alcoholism? What AA has taught me is three things that I did not know before I got to AA. I was very clear before I got to AA that alcoholism involved drinking an awful lot of alcohol and getting into great trouble. If you're here, I'm assuming you've drunk an awful lot of alcohol and you've got into great trouble. People rarely stop drinking unless they've got into great trouble. But the three things which I learned, which I didn't know, was first of all that it's progressive, that as you get older, it gets worse. A couple of things get worse. Firstly, my ability to stay away from the first drink gets worse, and my ability to control the quantity once I've had the first drink gets worse as well. Put those two together, and the other two problems kick in, which is that it's incurable, and I'll come to what that means in a moment. And it's also fatal. Now, there's a game called musical chairs where some music plays and you dance round and round and round whilst the music is playing. And then the music stops and you look for a chair. And if you can find one, you sit on it. But sometimes there is no chair to sit on and you're out. And alcoholism is a little bit like this. Throughout my drinking, the music played, and I danced around as the music played. I wasn't always enjoying it, but I was dancing. And then occasionally, once every few weeks or once every few months, the music stopped. And I sat down and came to and thought I need to do something about this. But then the music would start again, and I'd start drinking again. Now, the problem when I start drinking again, I don't know how long the music is going to go on for before it stops. Sometimes it stops and there is nowhere to sit. And one simply has to carry on. This is a very dangerous thing. One cannot simply stop whenever one wants to. One has to wait for the music to stop. If I start drinking, I am not in control of what happens next. I might come back to AA tomorrow or today, or years hence. A friend of mine relapsed in 1995 and it's 2024 and he is still drinking. He's tried to stop a few times, but as with the musical chairs, there isn't always a chair to sit on. He couldn't find a way to stay sober. There was something wrong. He stopped physically, but it was as though he was still drunk. He couldn't hear anything. I cannot take the risk of ever having another alcoholic drink in my life. Alcoholism kills people in the most brutal of ways, and I won't rehearse the list, but the list is frightening. And I'm always going to have it. In other words, my reaction to alcohol when it's in my body will always be the reaction it has been in the past, which is when I have a drink, I want another one and another one and another one and another one. And it goes on until something clicks and then I stop. I can't turn it off, it turns itself off. And if I've drunk yesterday, I'm going to drink today. And that's why this is so dangerous. Now, as I say, sometimes the music stops, and on I think 3 major occasions in my drinking, the music stopped, and on the 3rd occasion, I found AA. This was in the January of 1993, and I didn't take AA seriously. I liked it enormously, but I thought all I would have to do is attend these meetings, which I found pleasant, and I would never drink again. Very straightforward, as I saw other people staying sober. Mostly in the meetings I went to, people would tell us about their day or tell us about their week or say how they were feeling. And I thought, well, that's all you need to do. And I found myself drunk in a few weeks. And that's what happened with alcoholism. It's impossible for me to decide to drink. To make a decision is to commit to an action based on a sound analysis of the facts. No sound analysis of my history would lead to the conclusion a drink is a good idea. I go into a sort of mist, and within a few minutes or hours of the mist descending, in which nothing really makes sense, it appears to make sense, but nothing really makes sense, I discover myself drunk. And suddenly you in AA seem ridiculous to me. So sometimes when people slip in AA, everyone rushes round them, trying to help the person who is currently drunk. Now, obviously one must be kind, but I don't know one thing that I can say to someone who is drunk that will get them sober. I cannot get anyone sober any more than they can. It seems to be the action of forces greater than us that enable us to admit defeat, ask for help, get a medical detox if necessary. A lot of people will need medical help to come off alcohol. One can't simply just stop, except in rare cases in when the disease is in its early stages. Most people I've known have required a lot of help. And even then it's tricky. I know someone who started drinking again and it was a disaster, and he went to hospital I think 6 times, and they said, we'll detox you, all you have to do is stay in the hospital and not cause trouble. And he caused trouble, and he discharged himself from the hospital, from the detox that was saving his life. This is not straightforward. If you're here, however, and the alcohol has left or is leaving your system, I think there is very great hope, because I'm sure in wherever you are, whether you're in Cape Town or Durban or Joburg or Pretoria or Port Elizabeth, I'm going to run out of cities in South Africa that I've heard of soon. I'm not doing badly there. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of alcoholics who could find this meeting within 60 seconds of Googling Alcoholics Anonymous South Africa. They would find it and they'd be here, but they're not. So if you're here, something has happened to you that's not happened to other people. Something happened to me that did not happen to most alcoholics my age when I was 21. It's not a matter of suddenly realizing I have a problem. Under ordinary circumstances, to realize something, the evidence presents itself and it is obvious. In alcoholism, the evidence was there for me for years that I should not drink, that when I drink, terrible things happen, and yet the evidence did not produce the necessary realization, or all sorts of other ideas came in to suppress the truth. If you're here, there is a great deal of hope, simply because you're here. Now, what does one do about it if one has stopped drinking or is in the late stages of detox and is starting to be able to listen and hear? What do you need to know? Well, the first thing is, before 1935, if you were an alcoholic, good luck. Very occasionally, people would recover. But there was no system for helping that to happen. In 1935, a couple of Americans, God bless them, discovered a method which first of all worked for them, and secondly was scalable. In other words, they discovered that if that method was adopted by others, it worked for them too. And over the years, they discovered, initially, that most AA members were men, older, white, American, Protestant, very few Catholics, very few people of other religions, very few people of other ethnicities. Fortunately, we've discovered that it works for anyone, whatever the background, whatever the history, whatever the ethnicity, whatever the language, whatever the religion, whatever the life experience has been. It works. What's the it that works? The it is a very simple program for taking me off the throne of my life. What makes me an alcoholic, the incurable element, there are two incurable elements. The first incurable element is the effect that alcohol has on me when I drink it. Now, that we can't do anything about, except avoid ever having alcohol. Fortunately, it's possible to do that. But there's a second incurable element. There is part of my physical brain, I conclude, that is programmed to suggest a drink to me sometimes. Is it when I'm unhappy? Not necessarily. Is it on a bad day? Not necessarily. Is it when things aren't going my way? Not necessarily. Is it when I'm celebrating? Not necessarily. There is no identifiable pattern. Just boom, it's there. I need to be prepared for that moment when the thought of a drink will occur to me. Now, I was listening to a a French radio program a few months ago, which was about how the French deal with alcoholism. And there was lots of very complicated stuff about how the brain works, which did not interest me greatly. And they talked about a certain type of therapy with virtual reality headsets where they put people in situations in which they are likely to be triggered. And then you learn on the headset, the virtual reality headset, to say no to the drink. And now, this is all very well. This might work for some people, but it's a method which is based on the person remaining rational, making rational decisions. I don't know about you, but being an ordinary human being, I am not rational 24 hours a day, every day of the year. Any solution to alcoholism which requires me to be the rational decision maker, the perfectly rational decision maker, is going to fail, no matter how hard I'm trained. So good luck to the French. There's not much AA in France, incidentally. There is English-speaking AA. French AA is virtually non-existent. And there's more alcoholism in France than there is in England, incidentally. The solution AA offers is to say, we're going to take you offline when it comes to decision making. And in the place of that, we're not going to put another human being. We're going to put this thing called a higher power. So the traditional word is God, but there are other words that people use. People of any religion seem to find a way to cope with this. But it's not simply a matter of having a direct connection to God in a sort of mystical sense. We say, yes, you need a higher power, but in the meantime, here's a set of practical instructions you're going to follow rather than doing what your head has just told you to do. And so the training I've had in AA is to live in accordance with AA's system rather than living in accordance with my latest thought or feeling. My latest thought or feeling has almost no bearing on the course of my day. And my life is made up of days, so my thoughts and feelings have very little impact on the course of my life. I was told when I was new, someone in here heard me say this the other day, so I apologize for the repetition, but I was told 30 years ago we're not professionals. If you're new to AA, we are not professionals. We're regular folks, and that's it, who happen to be alcoholics who have stopped drinking and have stayed stopped. A regular person, a housewife from South London, told me 30 years ago, organize your life around AA. So you get your diary for the week and you put in which meetings you're going to go to, when you're going to meet your sponsor or talk to your sponsor. Your sponsor is someone who is ahead of you in AA, who is not emotionally involved in your situation, and who explains how they stay away from a drink a day at a time, and you get to copy what they do. A friend of mine put this very well. He said, if you want what we have, sobriety, you do what we did, the steps. If you want what we have, you do what we did. One simply has to copy. So contact with the sponsor goes into the schedules. The meetings don't run themselves. They require some work. So find some work to do in AA. We don't pay you for it, except in as far as you might stay sober as a result, which is payment enough. So there are chairs that need to be put out. There are readings which need to be read. There are newer people. Once you're 2 days in, there are newer people to talk to about how you got through the first 2 days, or where you found a detox or a good doctor to go to help you through the first week or two to get checked out. If you stop drinking, you need to get yourself checked out medically, if possible. And then there's the steps. What are the steps? I can't explain them in 3 minutes, but I'll give a general outline. Most alcoholics, and it was true for me, got to AA extremely disturbed. And we have a system with the steps for learning how to accept the things that we cannot change. And the things that I cannot change are the past, the truth, and you. And the system also helps me to change the 3 things I can change, which is what I believe, what I think, and what I do. I had a murky and dark and disgusting past, and one of the steps is to find someone else in AA who also has a murky and disgusting and dark past, and to share my secrets, and they say, me too. They say, yes, I did things like that. So one does not broadcast these things to everyone. One finds one person. If one doesn't like anyone locally in AA, one can always talk to a priest. And then I had to apologize to a lot of people formally. An amend in my book is simply a formal, sincere apology, an offer to pay back the money or repair the damage, and an offer to be of service going forward if I can be of service. It seems that if I forgive others for what I think they have done to me, which means to withdraw my judgment, and if I make amends to others for what I have done to them, I seem to arrive at a position of peace where the thought of a drink seems horrific. The last 3 steps are about living an entirely different way, namely, to inquire of the higher power of God in the morning, what shall I do today? And I'm a very great fan of keeping myself very busy. And if I say to God, keep me busy, it's amazing how things to do come into my life. So I have a business, I have a marriage, I have a home, I have relatives. I don't know what to do about any of my relatives, but I have them. And I see them sometimes under very controlled circumstances. Not straightforward. Other things are straightforward. I have interests. I don't sit around thinking about myself, and I don't sit around feeling sorry for myself or making lists of how others are behaving badly. I find this does not produce happiness or progress in my life. When I'm in my right mind, I leave everyone alone. If someone wants to talk to me, they can call me, but I don't interfere. Um, and my relationship with the higher power is very simple. I do have a spiritual life, as it were, in extension of the spirituality of AA, but I prefer to stay at the simple, practical business end of the relationship with God, which is to stick to simple, ordinary actions in the benefit of other people and keeping my big fat mouth shut an awful lot of the time. I'm very careful who I speak to and how I speak to people. I'm not as careful as I should be, but I'm getting better. Um, with regard to AA, it is the only method I've found that has enabled me to consistently stay sober, which means I must be careful how I behave in AA. It is not a place to pick up people for romantic reasons or worse. It is not a place to do business. It is a place to get sober. And because my life depends on it, I'm very careful about maintaining a good relationship others in AA and a good relationship with my home group and a good relationship with my broader AA community. Um, um, I got to AA very troubled mentally and emotionally, and I'm not troubled. I enjoy I enjoy life enormously in boring ways which would seem quite dull to anyone who is new. But I'm perfectly happy with them, and that's the bit that matters. So there's nothing spectacular I can show off about at all. I have a perfectly ordinary life, but I am happier with my ordinary life than I ever felt during my drinking. There's a line that my worst days now are better than my best days when I was drinking. And I think that is true because it is the direction in which one is headed that seems to matter more than the place one finds oneself. So I knew throughout my drinking what I was doing was fundamentally wrong. Now, even if things are difficult, I know what I'm doing is fundamentally right. And living a satisfactory life, which I think I have now, is worth more than living an exciting life, which is what I thought, perhaps incorrectly, I was doing before. I've spoken enough, so I'm looking forward, hopefully, to hearing some other people share, and thank you very much for listening.